Hello and welcome to the 4th day of January 2022. My name is Kurt and this is the Good Life Meditation. I do this every day to recall yesterday and think about how I did with regard to my creed. How did I do with the day in the pursuit of my objectives and using my principles to make it a better day. And then I recite my aforementioned objectives and principles, and then I talk about the day to come and what challenges I might face and ready myself for that very day, this very day. So let's go. Yesterday and last night. Yesterday was phenomenal. I really did well in terms of a solid days of work, maybe one of the most solid and productive days of work since I've come back to the United States. In terms of going in from the weekend, it was a Monday yesterday, going in from the weekend with a clearer plan for what I needed to do this week, my work objectives, setting forth a clear list of things that I needed to do. In terms of, there were 3 things I wanted to do yesterday. One was a very important email to the sponsor of one of my projects. I wanted to write a communications plan, and I wanted to write a training plan. Well, I wanted to do the first one, and I wanted to get started on the second one, maybe hopefully finish it, and then get started, and I didn't think I'd finish the third one. I did all 3 of them, and they came out better than I had hoped. I mean, I'm really pleased with the results, if I do say so myself. I think they're good, especially the communication and the training plan. The message to the sponsor was more routine. I knew exactly what that would consist of. It was more just communication of some facts, and also an important part of that is planting a milestone. Of yesterday was the start of the project in earnest. So kind of in lieu of a kickoff meeting, kind of a kickoff email. Really important to do that, to make clear communications along the way. It just sets the stage for a better, I just love this blanket my wife got me. It's so cold here in the desert in the morning. So yesterday was a good day. There were, there were a couple of other things that happened through the day that I'm trying to remember. Oh, my mom called me, and I had a kind of a repeat of before. I did well in managing that phone call with her, which is always a challenging thing. There was something else. I wish I could remember what it was. My mind is all kind of confused from that meteorite I saw last night. I was our bedroom here has a beautiful view of the desert, big landscape view of the desert. You can see the mountains in the night sky, stars. It's really nice. And I kind of opened my eyes from sleep, and it was still before midnight, just in time to see an enormous meteorite hurtling through the sky. I mean, really big. There's 3 such meteorites that I've seen in my life that, they're not just flash through the sky. These are big, hurtling, cruising through the sky with large fireballs behind them as they're going. This one was about 5 seconds. The first time I ever saw that, I actually saw it hit the earth, and it wasn't very far from where I was. I actually wish I had stopped. I was on a freeway in Utah, on a highway in Utah, and I wish I'd stopped and gone hiking out in the hills. I think we could have found ourselves a meteorite, freshly landed. It was that close. But this one, it just burned. It was like something out of a movie, just arcing through the sky quickly, but not like that. Just, wow, giant fireball behind it. And then just after about 5 seconds, it just diminished, burned up, or stopped flaming at least. That was impressive. I don't think it was anywhere nearby. I think it was on the outer edge of the atmosphere, a near miss, so to speak. So after that I had kind of a mental catalog in my mind of things I wanted to recount from yesterday. But in summary, basically what it was there were several incidents yesterday where I just noticed that my principles, especially the principle of recognizing true limits and true opportunity, came into bear. And it used to be that when there would be something that I couldn't do anything about, but was upsetting my balance, upsetting my world, that I would fret and fuss about it. But having enlisted that particular principle, again, true limits and true opportunity, recognizing what is and what is not within my control. As soon as I spot something and I see it as being outside of my control, it's just becoming second nature to let it go. Not to ignore it, but to disconnect my sense of control, or lack thereof, from that thing, and just let it do its thing. Mitigating any consequences and results of it, documenting them as well, and communicating. The project manager in me. Last night I slept very good, except for I did wake up. I am again waking up about an hour before the alarm clock goes off with thoughts in my head, thoughts about work, which, I mean, that's just enlisting the principle of nature. That's my nature. I take work very seriously, and I think about, I dream work. Sometimes my dreams wake me up. Excuse me. Okay, let's do the good life. 7 objectives. These are to be always ready to die, to have my bags packed, to make good and effective use of my time, to not squander it or waste my time, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. This creed, as I am going to start to call it, that I use as my guide and as my foundation. To cultivate good emotional reactions, to be ready for life's ambush, and to react well when it happens. To perform good actions, just throughout the day, all kinds of little things. To recognize true limits and true opportunities. To know, to see and know, ascertain what is within my control and what is not, and to not be unduly connected or attempt to connect myself and wedded to the things that I cannot control. To apply apathy to borrow from another principle. And then just to do one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly, deliberately, conclusively. Those are my 7 objectives. Those are the things that I live for. That's how I want to make better use of my days, is by furthering these 7 objectives. In so doing, I believe that I become a better man, and I leave a better world in my wake. Next, and by the way, all of these objectives and principles are found in my book, Going Alone, which is the story of how I basically developed this creed, this good life creed. The story is how I went deep into the desert, apprehended and reconciled with something called the great indifference, the emptiness of the universe. And then what I did with that in terms of developing a life of purpose. I like to call it a life of courage, joy, and independence. And that's what my book covers. So this is available on Amazon. Or if you go to goingalone.org, you can get a signed copy sent to you from me. Okay, my 30 principles. The first of these is the principle of war, to be always striving against everything that I hold as true and anything that anyone else claims to be true that is of significance. 2, reason and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt. Reason is the tool that I use in that war against statements of suggested truth. Remember, firstly, against my own, because I don't want to believe things that may not be true. So I need to fight to make sure that I'm not abiding wishful thinking. 3, the principle of the homunculus, the idea of a little man or a woman living inside our head. Of course, they're not really there. It's just an idea that kind of wraps up our consciousness in kind of anthropomorphizes our consciousness, if that makes any sense. And really what it is a way to remember that we're not getting out of here alive. That when death finally comes, so too our conscience will fail, just as sure as our big toe. And that's the end. The next principle is called the Anchorhold. The Anchorhold is a little rock sticking out of an imaginary sea, where the sea is death. And the homunculus stands upon that rock. It's a precarious perch, a little bit slippery, a little bit steep. And the tide rises and the waters get dangerously close. And sometimes there's wind and rain and storm, and the rocks get slippery when they're wet. It's a rough place to be. That's where each of us lives. You upon your rock, I upon mine. Little Rudy over there and Ollie, they're on their own rocks as well. Rest assured, we're all going in the water, one way or another. It's how we keep our cool, maintain our balance, and make good use of the time before we fall, or the waves overwhelm us, that are the measure of our days. The next principle is the home of good and evil, which is simply a reminder that our values are our opinions. Some may be better grounded in fact, and some may be wishful thinking, but opinions nonetheless. Good and evil are within the mind of the thinker. They're not out there in the universe. Dog's making a funny sound. There are no 10 commandments inscribed by God. That's just an idea that someone made up and wrote into a book. There is, in fact, apparently no God. And as a result, the ideas of right and wrong are our own. And we are subject to maintain them and to, first of all, develop them and then maintain them and give them up when they are not sound. That's the home of good and evil. It's in here. It's an opinion. Even the one that compels us to have children, that's also an artifact of our biology. The next principle is called the principle of purpose. This simply kind of relates what I want to do with my life in terms of having a reason to be here, making up a reason to be here, because there really is there is no reason to be here other than to make more copies of our genes, apparently, and even that's kind of a feigned mandate. The sub-principles for purpose are biology, reproduction in fact, virtue. And virtue, the next two are things that I just simply made up. Virtue, which is to live a virtuous life, where virtue is defined as the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. And then a mission, some mission in life. my mission was the living of my great life adventure and the writing of the book that came of that, and now the sharing of it, which is complete. So I guess I'm ready to die at any time. And I do think I am. My bags are packed. Not that I want to go, but I've got my house in order. Which I guess then means that I'm meeting my first objective. The next principle is called the atomic principle. The idea that we are atoms and molecules, and that very soon we will be reduced back to our constituent parts as soon as we die. It's already begun. Fallen to pieces, each of us. The next is the principle of nature, the suggestion that everything and everyone has a particular nature, and that it's good to recognize and abide that nature. Doesn't mean we can't fight it if it's bad. If our nature is sadistic, that should be countered. If it's criminal, that should be resisted in ourselves and others. That's where temperance comes in, and fortitude. But it's good to still to recognize what the nature of things are. Like, I think that things are going really well at work lately. Lately, by lately I mean coming back to my old job, largely because I recognize the nature of things better than I ever did before, and I don't. I find my way through, rather than wishing the world were different, while at the same time striving to make the world different. It's a tricky balance, that. The next principle is called the pirate ride, which is my suggestion that free will is an illusion, that we can make any choice that we want to make, but that in the end, we would never have made any choice other than the one we did. We are the pointy end of a spear that's been thrown long before we were born. And it feels nice to think that we're making our choices, but in fact, we're not. We are making them, but we are compelled by the inertia of everything. The inertia of everything. Wow. I like that. That could be a subtext for the principle. Next is after the pirate ride comes maturity, which has two sub-principles, wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we remember our successes and failures. And we are formidable when we have the fortitude to not repeat our mistakes and to build upon our successes and remember them. We are mature when that occurs, when we are both wise and strong. The dogs are cute. It's a good use of time, making pets happy. Makes me happy. After that principle comes the social principle. You and I, we are social creatures. We need one another. And we really do live better when we are seeking out the well-being of our species. The next principle is called public speaking. And it's the suggestion, reminder that we should very, very carefully manage our words, the sentences that we speak, the paragraphs that we compose in our mind, the very vocabulary that we select needs to be deliberate, using carefully chosen language to get our point across in measured tones with good margins around our ideas, ready to listen as much as we are to speak, more so maybe, certainly, and to never, ever gossip, which is a very dear and dire sin. To always communicate about other people who are not there, as though they're sitting right next to us and never saying anything we wouldn't say right there in front of them. It's a pretty good way to avoid gossiping. And that includes people that we don't know. Celebrities, just, sharing things about people that, anyone who's not there, whether we know them or not. Our communication then will become much more, I almost want to say pure, when we're not impugning the lives of others through our language or our words. Next is temperance. No. Yes? Yes. I changed up the order because I added a few new principles here. I sometimes get it a little mixed up. I think I've got them all. I just kind of mess up the order, but I think I got it. Temperance is the next principle. Temperance is our controlled consumption of all things. Work, play, hobbies, food, drink, sex, everything. Thinking, speaking, all of it. There are 3 sub-principles. Suffering, because we suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. Simplicity, because a simple life is a temperate life. And then apathy, which is the ability to recognize what is outside of our control and to let it go. The next principle is called the horror show, which is simply an acknowledgement that life is chock full of utterly incredible horror. I mean, the type of stuff that would curl Freddy Krueger's toes is happening right now, all around us, even to some of us right now. And if it isn't happening right now, it's going to come. Horror. Life is a horror show. And I don't want to forget that. Because I want to make my time here an effort to, if not avoid, at least alleviate some of that pain before the horror envelops me and consumes me and I'm gone. The next principle is called that which must be borne. And typically the things that we have to carry are the things that are the consequence of the horror show. And rather than covering our ears and eyes and denying it, even our mouth, I have to carry those things. Keep my hand on the tiller. Steer towards the North Star. The next principle is called the Feast of Offal, which is what happens when we get upset and let the world know that we're all upset. And then they get upset and they do the same. And then she said and she said and she said, as the old shampoo commercial says. I try not to engage in the feast and certainly to not consume it when others are sharing. Next comes the best seat in the house, which is right here, right now, who I am, where I am, wherever that may be, even if it's the horror show. Imagine that. If we could get to the point of being in a contented place, even amidst the horror. Wow. Like Stilbo, the Stoic. emerging from the burning, smoldering ruins of his city, his wife and his children dead, emerging from the ruins with nothing, yet having all of his possessions with him. The next principle is the path of wildness, which is a way out of complacency and into a better life. It's when we decide that we're going to move forward, even though we don't know exactly if forward way, the direction we're headed is the right way, armed with the best facts we have, and our reminder that life is fleeting, and initiating a motive force and impulse to a better world, and realizing that it may not be better, it may just be different. Takes a lot of courage. Scary as heck. Heaven knows. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. Acknowledging that there is a deep risk, the risk of not finding ourselves, as the hippies would say, and living an actualized life. And then there's the surface level risks of things like that everybody is encouraged to do: get an education, get a job, find a spouse, make kids, have a house, save for retirement, etc., etc. Basically, keeping ourselves warm, cozy, and in the comforting bosom of family. That's the surface level risk. The deep stuff is much harder. Well, they're both hard, but it's hard to do both. Some people pull it off, not me. I've spent more of my time on the deep risk, which means that I'll have to work longer now to get by in the old age. And I don't have much in terms of stuff to show for it. But that's okay. That's the path. That's the way I wanted to go. That surface level stuff seemed ephemeral and brief in a fleeting life. It didn't hold much appeal to me to begin with. I'm again reminded of Stilbo. Now comes sin and damnation. There are the following sins in my worldview. These are credulity, an overeagerness to believe; hope, wanting something without coupling that with action or a plan, just wanting; faith, which is where we believe something and we hold that our very belief is the evidence that we need to sustain that belief. It's a startling proposition. It's amazing that anybody abides that, and it's fascinating to me that that's somehow become regarded as a virtue in almost every civilization. How fancy that. It's so obviously false. The next sin is dogma, believing things because there's a large book where it's written in. The next one is authority, believing something because someone that appears to know what they're talking about, or has some letters after their name, or wears a funny hat, says it's true. And then, of course, gossip. Why do I think I'm forgetting one? I'll have to check. Well, I can check right here. It's in the book after all. Okay, the sub-principles are hope, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. Hope, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. And then also I added So it is 6. It's not 7. That is everything. Because I added gossip. This is an old copy of the book. See how all the principles are laid out there with a summary and description, and the sub-principles are there too. There's a whole chapter in the book called The Good Life. The next principle is called complete oblivion. Simply an acknowledgement, a reminder that when we're dead, we are going to be utterly wiped off the universe. There will be no reunion with the people that we enjoyed in our life, because they'll be dead too once they're dead. And because there's nothing after death, we won't see them. As a result, there's no chance to reconcile with them if we left on bad terms. Those bad terms will be held in state forever. Not even that. They won't even be anything, so don't even worry about it. But it'd be nice to settle things before you die. And then there'll be no final justice, because without a God in the universe, there's nobody to apply justice. And because when we're dead, we're utterly gone. Sins are, we escape with our sins, although we escape to nothing with our sins, right? Now the next principle is called the Great Life Adventure, which is a suggestion to have one or more experiences in life that become kind of the centerpiece of our living, the core of who we are, the thing that we build upon and share stories about later in life. I recommend the decade of the 20s for a good life adventure. It's the right time. We can withstand the failure better than. We can recover our fortune, from many cases, even our health, and our ego can only suffer to improve through failure in the 20s, if it doesn't finish us. In fact, or in here, because we can be finished. We can be wiped out through failure if we don't bear it well. The next principle is the season of philosophy, which is a time of life to record what we've learned along the way, to write our book, to write our poem, to make a video, to make a piece of art, to take a photo, to share with family, whatever the case may be. The caution is that when the muse begins to whisper in our ear, we better write down what she's saying, because she'll leave soon enough. Or if she does come back, we, and say it, whisper again, will be someone different, and we won't be able to record it in quite the same way. The gift of inspiration is a fleeting thing, passing thing, and usually a one-off. The next is the bullseye aim. The idea that we often strive for the mark, the center, the bullseye, but we usually miss. And that's okay. Just keep on throwing. Then followed by the uphill climb. Life is a steady upward climb. Da, 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 da. And every step further up, we get a more expansive view. It's tempting to stop somewhere along the way and to dig into the side of the hill and to stay there. That's fine. But you won't enjoy the view, and you won't get to suffer the climb. Too bad for you. Like I said, some people, that's fine. Wouldn't be for me. I'd rather climb. Arena and utility is next. Life is an arena for the experience and execution of our experience of life and the execution of our principles in pursuit of our objectives. 2 more. The nothing is enough. A suggestion towards simplicity. A recognition that less can sometimes give us more and be more satisfied, especially if we can learn to be content with it, with just a few memorable things, a few things upon a shelf. Every one of them has significance and memory for us. Someone asked me that recently at work. They saw the things on my shelf behind my desk, and they said, do all those things have a story? And I said, yes, everything in my life has a story. I don't keep stuff that doesn't have a story. And even stuff that has a story, I get rid of that too. So if that makes any sense. I try to boil it down to photographs and memories, and sometimes not even that. I'd rather live holding the moment of now as my story. Sounds kind of wooey. There's a nugget there, though. The last principle is the principle of fun. A simple reminder to enjoy life. Reminder to myself, really, because I'm the one that I tend to take things so seriously, and I tend to focus on the serious stuff so much that I need to remind myself to have fun, especially now at 50, almost 58, time's running out. Gotta have fun. In addition to the serious stuff. Okay, let's do a forecast of the day. Yesterday was such a great day, and I'm going to capitalize on that today. I'm going to begin the day by taking a mandatory training that I have to take. I'll complete that. I have one email that I want to send to welcome a new employee to the organization. I want to welcome her. And then I'm going to start in earnest I have a meeting in the morning that I need to attend. But then around that time, or probably after that meeting, we'll see. I've got some things to clean up. Got to prepare for my own meeting for tomorrow, a meeting that I'm leading. I can't believe my life has boiled down to like 1 or 2 meetings a day. It used to be 6 to 10. It's nice to be able to focus more on the actual work. But the big thing is I'm going to work on the actual training manual today. Get started on that. Wouldn't that be incredible if I can complete that training manual by the end of the week? I think I can do it. Setting myself a high goal. It's not scheduled to be done until maybe 3 weeks. All right. That's my good life meditation for today. Thanks for joining me. I wish you all the best. Remember to take care to cultivate your own creed. And you're welcome to borrow mine. It's free for the taking. Heaven knows I borrowed a lot of bits and pieces in the making of it itself. It's like rebuilding a building out of old bricks and stones from a former civilization. You're welcome to do the same. If any of these objectives or principles make sense to you and you like them, then have at them. Call them yours. And you're welcome to find them in my book. They're all listed in the video in the description down below too. They're all laid out there. Be safe, but not too safe.